Is rotational presidency a mirage for Kenya's political and governance landscape? That is our conversation today on yet another edition of Siasa Brigade, your go-to point on matters, political analysis, governance, and leadership at large. With yours truly here, Richard Mwanjo, your resident host on the channel, and with me on these conversations is none other than the only name in matters public policy analysis and political analysis this side of the Sahara, Herman Manyora. Welcome on the show, sir.
Wonderful, Richard. How are you?
I'm quite well. How about you?
I'm okay.
You okay?
Very okay.
Not so certain about whether you're okay. Is it because Ahmed Nasir and Miguna have called you out for being a tribal person?
But who is not? We are all tribal persons.
They say you cannot think beyond tribal lines.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's the talk. You're insisting that presidents has to shift from the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin community and maybe give chance to Aluya.
No, they didn't understand. I'm surprised that people can't even read a simple tweet. This English language is a problem. I've been enjoying myself. Yeah.
Very well then.
You know, Irungu Kangata had said that the Kikuyus have been overtaken by the Somali
community
in terms
of business
of
and politics.
I only added something that looking at the way Kikuyus are behaving, they have also been vanquished.
Really?
And I said, now, if the most populous tribe has been vanquished, is it not time for Aluya, which is the second most populous, to take over? It was just said in fact in a light touch.
But in the recent times, you've held on dearly to this conversation that it said we move from the Kalenjin and the Gema community leading the nation.
That is a very serious conversation we need to have.
Time is ripe to have
60 years after independence, it cannot be the case that Kikuyu Kalenjin. We are setting up our children for very serious trouble in this country.
Would you then say that last year...
It's not sustainable. It has never worked anywhere in the world.
It has never?
It never.
Does that inform why we said for sustainable peace in Kenya and then we have to shift the presidents from these two communities?
Yeah. For their own good, in fact. For their own good.
What's the worst that can happen if we go on with the Gema and Kalenjin in presidency?
That kind of arrangement can't work. It leads finally to trouble in any country.
60 years on.
If you make people believe they are part of a country in which they can never be part of the leadership of that country, then you have a Rwanda situation in the making. Yeah.
Would you say then that this far it is maybe the place of money in Kenyan politics that has made us to get to a point whereby it's only these two ethnic blocks leading?
It's money and many other things. The infrastructure that has been put in place from independence, that infrastructure that was put in place, the tribal infrastructure, has been very difficult to penetrate. And just when people thought Raila was going to get in 2007, it couldn't work.
It couldn't?
Just when Raila would have taken over from Kibaki in 2013, it didn't work. And last year, just when everybody thought it would work, it didn't work. In 2017, when the Supreme Court even agreed, it didn't work. That infrastructure that was put in place to ensure that power is with Kenyatta, nobody was going to compete against Kenyatta. Jaramogi was tossed off the window, thrown out, despite the fact that he had fought so hard to have Kenyatta become president. He was persecuted, house arrest, his party proscribed. Even Kikuyus who tried to question Kenyatta, they went the way those others went. We know them, we don't want to mention them. So that infrastructure that was handed over to Moi, with the intention of Moi handing over to Uhuru Kenyatta, which he did, that infrastructure has not been dismantled.
Very well then.
And you need to dismantle it in the interest of this country. It is in the interest. You cannot have sustainable peace in a country where you make certain sections of the country believe they will never be president. That's why if you look critically at the American Constitution, the way they framed their elections and their matters, provision for senators and blah, blah, balancing, the states are balancing, then the electoral college. If you ask yourself why, it was to avoid a situation of dominance from 2 or 3 states.
Inclusion, more of inclusion.
Yeah, so inclusion is always a very good thing. We give it lip service until we will hit something called a rock and it will bounce back and we say, you mean we couldn't see that it was not sustainable for Kalenjin Kikuyu to rule this country? It's not sustainable. It does not matter how good you are. In fact, I always argued. Remember, there are countries where dominant communities give power deliberately. It worked in Tanzania until Magufuli came.
They give it to the
People
other faction.
don't know how popular the Sukuma are. Those arrangements are even in South Africa. They're in Ghana. You know, where you look, stations in Ethiopia, what have you, where you look and say, if we were to go by our numbers alone, then it will lose. And I have been giving examples. We used to play the village, what do you call it, version of chess. What do you call it?
Draft.
Draft. So you are idling at home on a Sunday. Then a guy comes to visit. Then you begin to play drafts. Then you knock him. Then you knock him. Then you knock him. He's about to leave. So you play badly, he knocks you once. Hapa anaendelea kukaa. Mama anatengeza lunch mnakula.
So that he comes back the next time.
So that even mkae 2 hours.
Yeah, sure.
It is that easy. It is good, and especially for the Kikuyus who have dominated business. They would have known business is more important to them than being president. And in some countries, you got the Ashanti. You see, we dominate the business, the economy, we dominate in education. Being president is not important. You leave it to other people.
Are you signaling
Then
that?
it will come back. That's why I was saying, when Kibaki left, and there were many Kikuyus of that thinking, people like Njonjo, Wanjao, and SK Mashere. They were thinking, it is in the interest of Kikuyus for this power to move from the house and go to Raila or some Luo. It will come back later. But to cling on it, when it will go, they will never see it again. Look at the demographics. Look at how the Somalia, I gave a tweet that Somalis can combine with the Luyas and they'll cause havoc. People have really attacked me. Yeah. They didn't even understand. Look at the way the Somalis are moving in terms of population. Look at the way the Kambas are moving. Look at the way the Luyas are moving. I think by now the Luya are the most populous. Any census now will show the Luya to be number 1 or thereabouts. And the Kikuyus are going down for 2 reasons. The first reason is, certainly, they are more modern than the rest of us. And the more civilized or modern you become, the more you become materialistic. And you look at a family in terms of which schools will my children go to, how will they dress, where will I live. So you end up with 1 or 2. Luya wanachapa 8 sita, anawa bibi mbili. Masai nini, Somalia na. So, in another few years, the Kikuyu will just be a minority in this country. And what they are visiting on these other tribes will be visited on them. In a vicious way.
5 decades without the presidency.
With not 5 decades, more than 100 years. And you wouldn't know how that will play out in other sectors. So when you build anger in the people with whom you must stay together, you are not being a very smart person. You don't go out of your way to please people. You don't bend backwards to please people. But at the same time, don't create enmity with your neighbors. You leave this to your children and generations to come. What we have done in this country is we are playing the rest of this country against 2 communities. And that's why you see when elections are held, how people vote, the demonstrations in town, the mass action. You can see what it is, the anger.
Sure.
That anger is still inside. And I was saying, and I've been saying, and many people have seen, it would have been much easier for Raila to be president in 2013. By now, Ruto will be waiting. Ruto will be finishing his 2nd term now.
So people are bottling anger out here.
Of course. Of course, yeah.
And it will erupt at some point.
Of course. You can't hide. You can't block a river from moving. It will burst.
Eventually.
Water will always find its level and its way.
You like it or not?
This is not. It's a no-brainer that one, this hegemony between the Gikuyu and the Kalenjin is not sustainable and it can cause danger to the country. 2, the demographic projections will turn Kikuyus and the Kalenjin into terrible minorities. Terrible, not just minorities. You know, Luos used to be number 2.
Sure.
Are they number 2 anymore? Luyas overtook them. Kalenjins overtook them. And now they are trying to struggle to remain there. But the Kamba maybe are almost overtaking them. Actually, they're almost overtaking them. So these are demographics you must take care of. So that when the Luyas are a majority and they can combine with the Luos and the Kambas to rule forever, That shouldn't be the case. They should know, the Luya, the Kamba, and the Kikuyu should know, and the Luo should know, although they are the majority in the country, this country belongs to all of us, including Kalenjin and Kikuyu.
All right.
Yeah.
It is actually said, and you're an elder, that what an elder sees while seated, even a boy like me while on top of a cliff cannot see that.
Correct.
Would you then say that this is what informed Uhuru's decision to support Raila Odinga last year?
Majorly,
He knew
yes.
this was the opportune time.
Majorly, yes.
Majorly, yes.
For those who think Uhuru wanted to sustain himself
to protect
in power,
his family wealth.
that's always the cheapest thing that people come with.
Business
At least
interests.
to protect family wealth.
Yeah.
First of all, everybody protects their wealth. Number one.
Whether president or
And
not.
number two, who can touch Uhuru's wealth? These people who are just crying that Uhuru Aliba and they can't touch him. They can't touch his wealth. So it's not true.
They went for Northlands.
Which one? That are a few goats there, miserable goats, which they returned anyway. So that is not true. If you look at the handshake and look at the idea of the handshake, then you see what I'm saying and what you are asking is ingrained in the handshake. The idea that it's no longer sustainable for us to pretend that we can drive this country in that direction. These things will come to haunt us. So what Uhuru was saying, let us rectify the mistakes of our fathers. If you read that thing, Silikwapo,
Sure.
their fathers committed mistakes, made mistakes. It is up to him and Raila to right those mistakes. And I'm telling you, until you go in that direction, it does not matter how long it will take, but this thing will explode.
In the fullness of time.
And Kenyans will wish they had listened to sober voices like mine. Because the handshake was saying, let's address this problem. We have had it from independence up to now. It's time to end it and the country can move forward as one nation.
Very well. If you are looking at healthy democracies where rotational presidency has succeeded, oftentimes it was also because of the support of non-state actors, the civil society and such groups, the church. Would you say in Kenya's setup, the civil society has really put a spirited fight towards this particular front of achieving a rotational presidency right now?
You know, the civil society, I said, it died when Kibaki became president. Because civil society, like the church, was mainly Kikuyu. So the moment Kibaki became president again, the Kikuyus went to sleep. The church went to sleep. The civil society became dead.
Now it's worse?
Where are they? They are not there. They are trying to resuscitate, but they lost their voice. When you strangle yourself,
How about political activism? Back then we saw Martha Karua.
The same. Most people went slow. How could Martha Karua have worked with the Kibaki, who was a reactionary, who was not a progressive person? She did so that she can secure her position. But ideally, like Igitobu Manyora and Paul Muite, Martha Karua belonged with Jaramogi Oginga Odinga.
That year.
Not with Kibaki. So, and she's not alone, all of them. That's why Raila may be the only man who can stand on this table and say, I will remain true to country and to self. True to country, true to self.
No one else.
No one else. Most of these people have wavered in some way or the other. Others have chased money, and money has consumed them. Only Raila is standing. I'm not saying he hasn't chased money or anything, but he's the only one who is standing. When everybody was cutting corners, cutting deals, minding their election, Raila would have moved long in the comfort zone. He would have enjoyed his life. But he stood steadfast. And I'm just saying that those activities you are talking about either were swallowed by tribalism or materialism.
The currency in
There are
Kenya's
those
politics.
who succumbed to the beckoning of wealth, of money, of living in good places, of driving big cars. And they could no longer have their voice. They lost their voice because of materialism. There are those who wanted their positions, and the only way to secure those positions is to work with reactionary forces, suppressive forces, okay? So that they could become members of parliament. So they lost their voice.
They did lose their voice.
Yeah. Some of them are trying to resuscitate it, like Martha Karua have tried, they have been consistent. that part of their history, we can forgive them.
If you look at the current crop of legislators, especially the young, vibrant one who are coming up, Babu, Edwin Sifuna and Ndindi Nyoro, do they somewhat inspire confidence in you that they might at some point lead and spearhead this fight for at least a rotational presidency? Do they inspire that confidence in you?
We don't need a rotational presidency. We need two things. We need proper elections. We need to deal with the electoral injustices. Okay? Let just the best man win.
Just that.
If the best man had won, Raila would have been president in 2007. And if he had worked well for the people of Kenya, he would have president in 2013. By now, he will be home. Maybe Uhuru will be the next man. Let the best person win. Why we have issues in this country is not because of rotation or that because of even one tribe is big. Dominated. It's because those who win can't be allowed to get president by that infrastructure. The Kikuyu, for your information, together with the Kalenjin, are not even 30% of the population. They are barely 30%. The Kikuyu are 17% of the population, last census.
Yeah, sure.
The Kalenjin could be about 11, 12. So they are hardly 30%.
Hardly a quarter.
Hardly a third of the population. They are not a third of the population. They are not a third of the voters of this country. You get it?
Sure.
A third of the population of this country. So it's not that we have any dominant group that can, for now, make it difficult for other communities to be president. It is that roadblocks have been put in the way of those who would have won.
And that's what
we need. So if Babu Wino, Sifuna, Ndindi Nyoro love this country and their children, they must fight for fair elections.
For the son of
Free
Mamau.
And fair elections. So the son of some
Rigathi
Mamau may have a chance. You see, why I laugh at people like Ndindi Nyoro and Kimani Ichung'wah. I laugh, and they are very good people. I love them. I love young men. Why I laugh at them is, one, this country belongs to Ndindi Nyoro. Does it belong to Manyora?
You'll be long gone.
Me, I'm on the exit. I'm already gone. This country, my generation has messed this country. My generation.
You are shouldering the blame. Squarely.
Yes, we apologize. But it is tragic that our children, instead of doing something about the country so that Ndindi Nyoro's child will grow up in a good country and pass on the baton to his child, who will be Ndindi Nyoro's grandchild, Ndindi Nyoro is playing in the hands of those who have messed this country. He's joining the politics that has destroyed this country. So I laugh at them. It doesn't mean these others are better. Even if Raila was perhaps president and he was making mistakes, these other guys will be doing the same. So I laugh at the young people. It is time for the young people to ignore the divisions, these artificial divisions, and work together to make Kenya a better place for their own interests. The people who made this country what it is today are living. They are off. Wametoka stage.
The country will be left for...
Wameshuka kwa gari tayari na paper bag kwa mgongo.
Wameenda retirement.
Yeah, they are gone. They are useless. Have you seen a gathering of these old people? I saw there was a funeral used on TV.
Sure.
I looked at the people who mattered in this country. They look haggard, finished. Some of them are in diapers. They can't talk. They can't hear. They can't move. You saw that high-profile funeral on TV. Yeah. Do you see those people? What they look like?
You're headed there.
That's where we are. And then it's so tragic that these young politicians are like a tick on a cow. Ng'ombe inaenda slaughterhouse na kupe iko juu yake.
Why do you have a feeling that you're addressing also Cherargei?
They are all there.
They're all there?
That one is even worse. That one is confused. But I'm looking at forward-looking people like Ndindi Nyoro, Ichung'wah, Sifuna, Babu Owino. These people must cross ranks. Cross ranks. Work together for a better Kenya. When there is this thing like bombers talks, their voice must be heard. Not from the Azimio corner and not from the Kenya Kwanza corner. Because at the end of the day, like I've said, Raila and Ruto will just cut deals.
And you are left there hanging.
It's as simple as that.
They will?
Of course. Ndindi Nyoro will get nothing out of this operation. Ichung'wah will get nothing. Like Shakespeare said,
Despite being the attack dogs?
Yeah, if you read Shakespeare, Julius Caesar, there are supposed to be 3 people. When one is out, 2 of them are talking. What do we do with this man? Another one says, this is just like an ass, like a donkey, which has carried gold. And once gold has been offloaded from the donkey, it is sent to go and graze.
To the world.
Waende wakule nyasi, ng'ombe, punda. So kina nini Nyora utaenda kula nyasi kama punda. Na dhahabu inagawanywa hapo ndani.
Hakuna kubakishiwa kidogo?
Wanabakishiwa gani? Kidogo tu ya sustain.
Oil your pockets.
Kama ni asau unaambiwa fanya ulimi hivi inawekwa kidogo.
You are never fair to Ndini Nyora and Cherargei.
No, I'm not. Now I'm talking about including Sifuna.
Including Sifuna. Finally.
I'm saying let them get together this constitutional moment and fight for a better Kenya.
Very well. There you have it from a man born Manyora, nuggets of wisdom on matters, rotational presidency, governance and leadership, and probably what our current political decisions will portend for future generations. Time for us to listen keenly to what he is saying and also tap to the best knowledge from him. That has been our conversation today. Always a pleasure to have you on board. Tune in to our other programs on the channel with Jadiel Kabiru, Evan Sokinyi, and Mundia Gitau. Until next time, God bless.